Good morning, everyone. This is Sergeant Heine, and today we are going to discuss the Air Force Form 912. The Air Force Form 912 is for Chief Master Sergeants only, so only Chief Master Sergeants can complete their reports on the Air Force Form 912. Section 1, the Ratee's identification data, is going to be the member's name, full social, their rank as of the closeout date, duty AFSC as of the closeout date, and their organization, command, and location. Like on the other forms, the non-EAD or AGR is optional for Chief Master Sergeants as well. We do still recommend here at ARPC to add the non-EAD or AGR, but if not, then we will still accept it. The member's passcode, and then the member's senior rater ID. This is a mandatory field for Chief Master Sergeant reports. Just like the Air Force Form 911, the senior rater ID does have to be input onto the form. Section 1, Block 8 is the reason for report. For Chief Master Sergeants, it doesn't give as many options as the 910 or 911. The annual is going to be an AGR ending on a SCOD. Directed by Commander is for annotating derogatory information. The biennial is for non-EAD ending on a SCOD. And the directed by half would be for promotion or demotion purposes. Because they're already a chief, it will most likely be for demotion purposes only for the 912. So this is where it differs a little bit between the rest of the forms. In the Section 1, Block 9, it is the pay date for the reserve and guard components. The total active date is for Reg F only, and the reserve and guard will be using the pay date in Section 1, Block 9. In the period of report, it's always going to start the day after the last report closed out and will end on a SCOD for AGR every year, non-EAD odd years of 31 May. And then Section 1, Block 11 is the number of days supervision. This is the number of days that the member was supervised during the period of report. There are no non-rated days on the Air Force Form 912. So if there are any reasons why the member would be non-rated, please just add that in the coordination comments of the VPC site. And then Section 1, Block 12, the high year tenure date. So at our level, ARPC level, we do not verify that this date is the actual high year tenure date of the member, just because there are different circumstances for different dates. So please, CSS or FSS, review that the high year tenure date is accurate before submitting the report. And then Block 13 is the member's duty title. Again, please spell out their job description and do not use uncommon acronyms or abbreviations. Section 2, so this is the rater's performance assessment section. So this is just the members' performance bullets. So they have 4 bullets here that they can fill out. They have to have a minimum of 1 bullet. And if comments are not provided, they should use this section not used, and that will count as the bullet for the member. Again, no personal PME comments. This isn't as common just because Chief Master Sergeants have usually finished all of their PME. But again, they cannot mention if the member completed ALS, NCOA, or senior NCOA unless they won an award. And they can mention senior enlisted joint PME if completed. They also can mention any career field related schools, trainings, leadership development schools and or seminars, just like the 910 and 911. And also they cannot have any personal fitness statements on the Air Force Form 912. So no scores or categories related to the member. And then the rater's information. it has to at least be a chief master sergeant or an officer as the rater, same rank or higher. And then the rater's duty title, date that they signed, their last four of their social. Again, if the rater is a civilian, they do not have to provide the last four if they choose not to, or they can provide the last four of their social. And then they would sign at least the day of the closing date or after. They cannot sign before. Moving down to section 4. So this is where the senior rater's performance assessment is. So they have to either concur or non-concur. And then they have to add a comment if they want to. If they do not want to, comments are optional, and this section does not have to state this section not used if comments are not provided. So this section can be left completely blank. We still recommend using this section not used in the senior raters assessment block. However, it is not mandatory that this section not used. The only time it is mandatory is if the report is a referral report. And in this section as well, the senior rater must be the one completing this section. So it cannot be a squadron commander. It cannot be a group commander unless they hold the senior rater ID. It has to be the senior rater completing this section. So more likely than not, it will be a wing commander or higher. Block 2 is actually the member's overall rating. So this is a common thing that we see. Block 2, the consider for higher responsibility, is for some reason blank sometimes, but this is actually the rating for the chief. So the highest rating is ready now. The next is on track. The one underneath that is current assignment. And then there is groom and do not retain. As far as the guard is concerned, we have a memorandum from NGB stating the guard is not allowed to use do not retain on the Chief Master Sergeant reports. As far as the reserves are concerned, they can use do not retain if the report is a referral. The rating of groom can be used for the guard or the reserves to specify a referral or non-referral. But again, the guard cannot use do not retain. The reserves can. So the next rating would be groom for the guard. If the member is chosen for ready now, then the option of command chief for the recommended future roles will be available on the form. The member has to be ready now in order to receive the command chief recommended future roles. If the member is selected for on track, for example, the command chief future role is not available to the member. So the next highest would be, or the next option would be the squadron superintendent. If the member is chosen for ready now and receives the command chief master sergeant recommended future roles, the guard is not allowed to add a stratification underneath that future roles. However, the reserves should be adding a stratification. So for example, if the member is the number 1 of 10 assigned chief master sergeants, underneath the senior rater, so this stratification would come from the senior rater, the reserves would fill out the number 1 of. However, the guard should not be filling in the stratification comments. If they are receiving this command chief future role, again, right here it states that comments are highly encouraged when making the command chief recommendations. So again, the reserves can also add a stratification in the comments section. The guard is not able to add a stratification in the comments section. So the reserves, if the senior rater decides that this is their number 1 of 10 assigned chiefs, they can add that in the comments, number 1 of 10 assigned chief master sergeants, and they can also add it in the recommended future role section. The guard cannot add either of those. So please keep that in mind, depending on your component, what is acceptable and what is not. These future roles are not mandatory. So if the senior rater does not want to add any future roles, they do not have to. They can choose up to 2, command chief being one of them, and then they can also choose any of the other options that are available. If they choose other for the recommended future roles, they must describe what that other role is. So they cannot just choose other and then leave the description blank. They have to actually describe what future role they recommend for the member. If they choose any of the other drop-downs, they don't have to type anything extra. They would just use one of the drop-downs. So the senior rater would then fill out their organization block, and they would also fill out their duty title. More than likely, it's going to be the wing commander because they are filling that senior rater position. They will add their last 4 and then sign and date. In section 5, this is where either a functional examiner or Air Force advisor would fill out if necessary. If the functional examiner or Air Force advisor is needed, then they must be a major or above. If these roles are not needed to sign the report, then they will just leave section 5 blank. And then section 6 is the Ratee's acknowledgement. So they will sign and date. If they are not able to sign and date, then anybody from the rating chain, so either the rater or the senior rater who has previously signed the report, has to select one of the drop-downs, either not available to sign or Ratee refused to sign, and then they would sign for the Ratee. Okay, moving on to the second page of the Air Force Form 912. Section 7 is the remarks section. So this would be used to spell out any uncommon acronyms, just like the Air Force Form 910 and 911 have. And then if it is a non-referral report, that is all that is necessary for an Air Force Form 912. I will go over what a referral report looks like on the 912 just because it's directly on the report itself, but I also am planning in one of the future courses to go over referral reports for all forms. So this will just be kind of a basic referral guidelines, and I will go over referrals more in depth in a future training. So section 8, if you're familiar with what the referral memorandum looks like for an Air Force Form 910 or 911, this is exactly the referral memorandum, except just on the report itself. So where it says, I am referring this EPR to you, this would be like in paragraph 1 of the referral memorandum. This comment would match the derogatory comment on the actual report itself, where it says, you may submit your rebuttal comments, send your written comments to. This is the exact same as paragraph 2 of the referral memorandum, where they would write the senior rater's name and address, either email address or physical address of the member that they would be submitting their comments to. The referring evaluator will then sign and date the referral memorandum, and the date that they sign the referral memorandum should match the date that they sign the actual report in section 3. The Ratee will then sign the memorandum, and the date that they sign will start their time frame to submit a rebuttal, either 3 duty days for an AGR or 30 calendar days for a non-EAD, and the senior rater must wait that full time before they actually sign the report. Like I said, I am going to be going over referrals more in depth in a future training, so just keep that in mind too. And that is it for the Air Force Form 912. It's a very simple form. There's really only 5 places where bullets can be provided. They don't have any, promotion recommendations, just like they don't have any of that like on the 910 or 911. The only main difference is that the senior rater must sign in Section 4, and Section 1 has a couple extra blocks that are not on the 910 or 911. Most of the other rules that apply to a 910 or 911 apply to the 912 as well. And the second page of the 912 is actually the referral memorandum, but just on the report itself. So a separate memorandum is not necessary if the report is a referral. So I am going to open it up for questions already. I know it's a short training, but the 912 is a pretty simplified form.
My name is Sergeant Sipple. I'm with the 115 Fighter Wing CSS. Where would I find the Hyatt date or the HYT date?
So the high year, 10-year date, there's different rules depending on, sometimes it's age 60, sometimes it's how many years in a specific grade. So that just depends on, the status of the member at the time. So that might have to be manually calculated at your level.
Thank you.
And if you are not able to either use the chat or ask a question, please open a MyPERS incident. And if you just label it question from Air Force Form 912 training, I will go through all of those and answer those as through MyPERS after the training as well. And also, if you have any recommendations for this live event, if you could please add that as well, just because it's just not allowing us the same options that a normal meeting does. We might have to switch platforms for the next training as well. Again, please open a MyPERS incident if you have any future questions. And the next training will be regarding the Air Force Form 707 for officers. So that will be coming up next month. And hopefully we will be able to have more questions and other options for that meeting as well. So with that, have a good day, everyone. I hope to see you next month for the Air Force Form 707 training.